Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me and thank you so much for your patience and understanding. I explained in the video that I put on yesterday about the garden that I've had a really bad sore throat and cold. I think everybody's had it at this point, and it had gone round my house weeks ago, but it hadn't bothered me. And then when everyone else was better, I came down with it. So praise the Lord, I was able to look after my family, and then in turn they was able to look after me. So everything works out. I've also had a trip to A&E. So yeah, there's been a lot going on. I should do a video about my health because I moan about it enough. So I'll probably just do a separate one about living with those conditions and what it means. And it's why it's a bit sporadic on here, but I do my best. Sometimes it takes me all the energy I've got just to get up and clean the house and take care of the children. So yes, guys, I muddle through, but I'm back and we are going to do the next instalment of Return of the Gods and get this book finished because I think we've been reading this for a good while now. So it's time to move on through with that. And then I also got this book. There was a Christian bookstore not far from my house, about 10 minutes drive. And I've never been in before and I never even noticed it. So I went in and the lady was really lovely. I brought some Christmas cards from there. And she actually gave me this because I was talking to her about the names of the Lord and when you study them and how beautiful. And yeah, so she gave me this and I thought this would be really nice to read on the channel. She also gave me another book that I'm actually reading upstairs and I might read that on it. It's about an old preacher, but it's brilliant. So I might get on and do that. I'm trying my best to fulfill all roles. So let's go ahead and jump into Return of the Gods. This is Days of the Goddess. Excuse me, guys. Right. Days of the Goddess. The rites of the goddess were meticulously timed. They could only take place on the days appointed according to the Mesopotamian calendar. Sorry, guys. So as we have seen, the goddess's entrance and an inauguration of her resurrected movement at Stonewall took place at the exact time ordained by the Mesopotamian calendar and the ancient mystery. According to the mystery, it took place in the month of Tammuz, and on the Western calendar in the month of June. It was set in motion within the days of the summer solstice and centered on the full moon of Tammuz, all linked to the goddess. It was all sealed on June the 26th, 1969, the 10th of Tammuz, the day that in the Babylonian calendar was ordained for the casting of spells to cause a man to love a man. But could there be even more to the mystery? Could it be that behind some of the most pivotal events of American culture lies the calendar of the goddess? And could their timing reveal her fingerprints? Before Stonewall, there was a series of protests or pickets on behalf of homosexual rights known as the annual Reminder March. The protest took place in Philadelphia by Independence Hall every year on Independence Day. They were small and for the most part ignored by the media, but after Stonewall, the Reminder March would be moved to New York City and would transform into the Pride Parade. The first Reminder March took place in 1965 in the summer. In the ancient month of Tammuz, it fell on Tammuz 4. The second took place in 1966, also in the month of Tammuz, on Tammuz 16. The third in 1967 took place within days of Tammuz. The fourth in 1968 took place on Tammuz the 8th, and the fifth and last in 1969 took place on Tammuz 18th. Thus, 80% of those early marches took place in the month of the goddess and her lover Tammuz. All of them took place in or by Tammuz, the same month in which Stonewall riots broke out. But the reminder marches took place before Stonewall. The timing of the one had nothing to do with the other. The scheduling of the Reminder March was based on American history. The timing of Stonewall was based on a deputy police inspector's planned raid and explosion that was planned by no one. Yet they both fell in ancient Mesopotamian month connected to the goddess. Beyond that, the first Reminder March took place on an ancient Mesopotamian holy day connected to the ceremonial funeral of the goddess's lover. So did another. A third took place on another ancient Mesopotamian holy day, this one appointed for a ceremonial procession in honour of Ishtar's lover. Right, toward the end of June. Then came Stonewall, and from Stonewall the days and weeks and then months of pride, all these would take place, as we have noted, in June, the month that, more than any other, began the observances and celebrations of Tammuz. But the timing was more specific. In his seminal work, Tammuz and Ishtar, after comparing the Sumerian, Assyrian and Babylonian calendars and the Mesopotamian agricultural cycles, Stephen Langton concludes, this is conclusive evidence that the wailings for Tammuz were held toward the end of June from remotest antiquity. Through the lunar-based calendars of Mesopotamia oscillate with regard to the modern solar-based Gregorian calendar, there are several factors that converge towards the end of June. Though the festival of Tammuz can only begin in early June, the central or median time for its beginning is in the days towards the end of June. Further, the summer solstice, of critical importance on the pagan calendar and linked to the descent of Tammuz, always takes place towards the end of June. It was no accident that beyond the fact that Pride Month was June, its focus was likewise always the last days of the month, the days towards the end of June. The commemorations, observances, celebrations and pride parades most often clustered around the days toward the end of June. They would typically be held within a week or just days from the summer solstice and the time of pagan celebration. The first door, legalization of homosexuality. At Stonewall, the goddess forced open an ancient door. It was the first of several such doors and opening. Among the most momentous of these took place in the United States Supreme Court in 3 landmark cases. The first door and first case was that of Lawrence v. Texas in 2003. It resulted in the Supreme Court decision that legalized homosexuality throughout the United States. It would be cited later that same year by the Massachusetts Supreme Court in the ruling that legalized same-sex marriage in that state. The first such legalization in America, Lawrence v. Texas, represented the opening of the door that closed on pagan sexuality in ancient times. It was thus covered in the goddess's fingerprints. When was that Supreme Court decision handed down? It happened in the summer, in the month of June. It came toward the end of June, the specific time that Langton had cited for the ceremonies and worship of Tammuz and Ishtar. The timing of the Supreme Court decision had nothing to do with the timing of Stonewall any more than the timing of Stonewall had anything to do with the timing of the reminder marches. The timing in this case was determined by the schedule and functioning of the Supreme Court, and yet every event would converge within days of others and all at the same time of the year ordained for such things in the ancient calendar. If you can hear some banging, guys, I do apologise. We have a kitten. Well, she's 9 months old. We rescued her, and my daughter's playing with her. So it sounds like thunder. June the 26th, 2003. More specifically, the ruling that legalised homosexuality across America was handed down to June 26, 2003. Handed down on June 26, 2003. June 26 was the same exact date that the Stonewall Uprising was sealed, when its warrant was issued and the legal authorization was given to set everything else in motion. So, the ruling that legalised homosexuality across the nation happened to fall on the anniversary of the day Stonewall was sealed. The mystery had ordained it. I'm so fed up. Sorry, guys. Fly. The second door. Overturning the defence of marriage. The second door was forced open in the landmark Supreme Court case of United States v. Windsor in 2013. It resulted in the ruling that would overturn the Defence of Marriage Act. It would lead to the federal government's recognition of same-sex marriages performed in states where it had at that point been legalised. It would also open the door for an even more momentous Supreme Court ruling that would come 2 days later. When was the ruling that overturned the Defence of Marriage Act handed down? It happened in the summer of 2013 in the month of June, within the days of the summer solstice, towards the end of June. The days especially identified with the festival of Tammuz, it was handed down in the days of the ancient month of Tammuz. June 26, 2013. On what exact date did the ruling come? The Defence of Marriage Act was overturned on June the 26th, 2013, 10 days to the exact same day the Supreme Court legalized homosexuality in 2003. Both of the rulings opening the door to the normalization and establishment of homosexuality fell on the same date, and both on the date that sealed Stonewall, the event that began the opening of the door. The third door, the overturning of marriage. The third door was forced open in Supreme Court case of Obergefell v. Hodges. It resulted in a momentous ruling that would strike down the historical, biblical, and old age definition of marriage as the union of a man and a woman. It legalized same-sex marriage across America, as marriage was core the relationship of family, and family the core unit of civilization. The transforming of marriage would ultimately mean the transforming of civilization. The ruling would affect law, education, commerce, religious freedom, and virtually every other realm of American culture. It was monumental, and behind it was the hand of the goddess. When did it take place? The historical definition of marriage was struck down in summer, in the month of June, within days of the summer solstice towards the end of June. Within days of the summer solstice towards the end of June. Sorry, I keep getting distracted, guys. Marriage, as it had always been known, was struck down in the ancient month of Tammuz, the month of the goddess's passion. Sorry, I had some virus thing come up on my computer, so I was trying to, and then I lost my train of thought. Right, June the 26th, 2015. When exactly? Marriage as the covenant of man and woman was struck down on June 26, 2015, the exact same date that the Defence of Marriage Act was overturned in 2013, the same exact date that homosexuality was legalised in 2003, and the same exact date that Stonewall was sealed in 1969, and the date that sealed Stonewall was itself the same date on the ancient calendar appointed for the casting of the spell to cause a man to love a woman. And so, all three landmark events that pushed open the ancient door took place on the exact same date. On top of that, which was the anniversary of the date Stonewall was sealed, which was the beginning of the opening of that door, and which was itself on the ancient calendar the date appointed for a man to love a man. And thus all four events were joined together to the ancient day of the ancient spell. There's something in this same date thing, because when I was looking into, I remember when, I don't know if it was in the 60s, they had an appearance, what they said, there was appearance of the Virgin Mary. She appeared to some children. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. And when that happened, and all the things that happened subsequently was on the same date. So, I mean, we all know, like, in occult, numbers and patterns and stuff, it's like, and symbolism, it's all, like, very important to them. So, yeah, that's interesting. Right, fingerprints of the gods. All three Supreme Court rulings took place on one of the days of Tammuz, the ancient month in which the union of male and female was broken. The 9th of Tammuz was the day of the first torchlight procession commemorating the separation of the male and female god. It was on that day that marriage as a union of male and female was struck down. It is hard for the modern mind to fathom the idea that the political, cultural and judicial events of modern times could be determined by an ancient mystery from the Middle East, but the exact converse of all these events and factors is stunning. No one single person was there, present in each of these events, to cause them all to converge. Each series of events was determined by different people, different circumstances, different decisions, different considerations and different dynamics. One was based on the founding of America, another on a chaotic uprising that no one could have orchestrated, and another on the logistics and workings of the Supreme Court, and yet they all fell into place according to the ancient mystery. All three Supreme Court rulings on the exact same day and the day Stonewall was sealed. They all converged at a time of special import and intensity on the ancient pagan calendar. They all took place at the time specifically connected to an ancient spirit, and the spirit especially connected to the bending of gender and the altering of sexuality. Night of the Rainbow. On the night that marriage was struck down, a sign appeared across America. It was a sign of the goddess, the rainbow. That night, the sign marked the nation as it never had before. The sign of the goddess lit up the Empire State Building, it lit up waters of the Niagara Falls, it lit up iconic castle at Disney World, and most dramatically, it lit up the building from which America was governed, the White House. Night of the Ancient Spell. In an ancient Babylonian and Hebrew calendars, each day begins at sundown. The ruling came early in the day that on the ancient calendar was the 9th of Tammuz, but the night that crowned the Supreme Court's overturning of marriage, the night of the colours of the rainbow lit up the White House, was a new day on the ancient calendar. It was the 10th of Tammuz. The 10th of Tammuz was the day appointed from ancient times for the spell to be cast to cause a man to love a man. So the Supreme Court's monumental ruling to overturn marriage, enabling a man to marry a man, was crowned at nightfall by the 10th of Tammuz, the ancient day of the enchantment to cause a man to love a man. The spell had been cast, and the sign of the goddess was marked the land, even the house from which the nation was governed. It was a sign of ownership. The spirit of the goddess was moving to take possession of America. To Ishtar belonged the power of metamorphosis, by which she could transform a man into a woman and a woman into a man. But what if her powers of metamorphosis were applied to a culture, a nation, or civilization? What if the transitioning of a man or a woman was a microcosm of the transitioning of an entire culture, nation, and civilization? That's the end of that chapter. And when you think about it, when that happened and it started to change where, marriage could be between two men and two women in the eyes of the world, obviously not in the eyes of God, that was like the catalyst for everything else that came along with it, and people identifying as whatever they so wish, despite science saying otherwise. You can mutilate your body and do what you want to it, but you're still going to be the gender you was born. I don't get it. So, hey, that is the way of the world. And it's only going to get worse from here, so I have no hope in this world. But yeah, it's always really interesting, isn't it, to see how these spells are cast over people and nations, and yet people believe that these things don't exist. They don't believe in magic. They don't believe in a spiritual battle that's raging on, which just makes them pawns in the game. But yes, guys, thank you so much for being so patient. I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry about the throat being a bit croaky and having to cough and getting a bit distracted. It's another symptom of my illness, but hey, we be pushing on. So thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.